So I do realise it's been a while since my last video. Since then I put it out on Facebook. I asked people what they'd like me to talk about, as opposed to just kind of picking my own topics. I wanted to ask you guys what you wanted me to talk about. And one of the first things that came back was from a very good friend of mine from uni. She asked if I could talk about ADHD and ways to help other people who have the condition. As a teacher myself, a lot of the kids that I've worked with, and kids and young people rather, have often had ADHD. So it is a topic that I am particularly passionate about, not only because I had it myself, but because I've worked with a lot of people with it, and I find them just amazing individuals, because in a way people with mental health problems or learning difficulties have to actually work a lot harder than those who don't necessarily have those kind of issues in their lives, let's say. So yeah, I'm really kind of glad that that topic came back as something that you guys wanted me to talk about. What I'd like to talk about specifically is, I'll touch on the issues that I have with ADHD personally, and then we'll kind of go on to talk about the symptoms and ways it manifests itself. And I'm also going to bring in a couple of case studies through people that I've worked with, and what I've done or what strategies I've put in place to try and help them through their education. So personally, I have ADHD, predominantly inattentive type, and some of my symptoms are things like I find it really difficult to sit still. Sometimes it feels like I'm in battle with my body, like my body wants me moving, but the environment I'm in or the situation I'm in doesn't typically allow that, so sitting still can be quite a big problem. I often find it hard to focus on a single task, especially when I've got quite a few jobs that I need to get done. Obviously with teaching, there's the marking, there's the planning, there's the admin, there's the answering emails, answering questions and things like that. So quite often I will end up bouncing around a whole bunch of different tasks, and eventually the tasks will get done, but in small increments. Other areas that I find difficult is my thought pattern can often fire in a number of different directions. So again, even though I'm trying to complete one task, I'm actually thinking about when I'm going to be able to go to the gym, or when my next class is, what am I going to deliver in my next class, whose needs I need to meet. So quite often, yeah, I'm trying to think about one thing, but I'm thinking about a whole bunch of things at the same time. Completing a single task obviously can be difficult. Like I said, I keep flipping between various ones, and sometimes just waiting to talk or wait to share ideas with someone, it can be quite hard to just keep my mouth shut, let them finish. I guess it's kind of like trying to hold back a sneeze. I will say now, if you hear any strange running around noises or nibbling, my rabbit is running around here. She's currently chewing on a box, so any background noises you hear, it's Bumper trying to get in on the video. So before I go specifically into the ADHD, if we just kind of put mental health into perspective, according to Mind, which is a mental health charity, 1 in 4 people will at some stage in their life experience a mental health problem. So if you kind of put that into a teaching context, if you've got a class of 30 students, potentially you've got 7 pupils in each of your classes that may come across a mental health difficulty. And by that I don't just mean ADHD, but the other things on what can often be termed as a spectrum, such as the bipolar, the depression, anxiety, OCD, etc. ADHD itself, you'll probably have heard of a number of stereotypes, things like it's just an excuse for bad behaviour, or it's bad parenting, or the person is lazy, it's not a real disorder, the individual just needs to try harder, adults can't have it, it's only something that children will have, a person might not listen to instructions, might need to, you think the person needs to focus more. There's so many stereotypes out there, which makes it so important that we do talk about mental health as the conditions. So, as a point of reflection, if we are given medication, then to me that symbolises that ADHD is a medical condition. Why would you be given medication for something that isn't a medical condition? So it is quite a lot of talks. I'll often go into schools, I'll go and visit university groups, I'll go to support groups, and something I really try and get into my talks is the fact that so many famous people have got mental health conditions. If you look at Michael Phelps, for example, he was diagnosed with ADHD as a child. If you look at his achievements and you look at the attributes of an ADHDer, we really can see that the attributes from the ADHD has probably played a significant part in him getting to where he did in his career. If you look at it from the start, at 15, for example, he was the youngest person to compete in the Olympic Games. Actually, the youngest Olympian since 1932. He was the youngest man to set a swimming world record at 15 years and 9 months. He achieved Swim of the Year, he set 39 world records, he achieved 8 gold medals at the Beijing Olympics. He's like one of the most decorated athletes. And if you look at how the ADHD played a part in his life, you could say that the ADHD probably had a significant impact on what he was able to achieve. If you look at the energy, for example, the energy needed for a swimmer to wake up in the morning, like pre-breakfast, go for a swim, afternoon swim, probably after school swim. He most definitely used his ADHD as to his advantage, and I think that we can learn so much from famous people who have got mental health conditions. Something touched on earlier was the symptomatic overlaps. So alongside the ADHD, although possibly not diagnosed, it is very common for individuals to have comorbid conditions such as, the tics, dyslexia, bipolar disorder, depression, OCD, learning disability, poor working memories, sleep problems, etc. So the point I want to try and make is it's so important that we do educate ourselves on the spectrum of mental health conditions, because although only one may be diagnosed, there's often symptoms of other conditions which can play a significant part in some way. Just to kind of come back to the positive aspects, I know we've kind of talked about the symptoms and how it can affect an individual, but there's so many positive aspects that can be taken from things like ADHD. Someone with ADHD obviously is full of energy, tends to have a pretty decent sense of humour, make the best of a bad situation, very creative, enthusiastic, passionate, willing to take risks, easily motivated. And again, as a teacher, it's so important that we do focus on these aspects of the condition, as opposed to the why aren't you listening, why aren't you taking down what I've said, why can't you follow instructions. Just use all these positive things and help the individual see those attributes as positive attributes, not just negative attributes. Coming on to a few case studies, one of the individuals that I worked with had ADHD. They were diagnosed as a child and they needed to take medication on a daily basis. This individual would take medication partway through the lesson, and you could see an instant difference. So the first half of the session, the individual was very, very hyperactive, had a lot of energy, struggled to kind of focus, stay on task, taking what was going on straight in the here and now. And as soon as they would take the medication, became almost immediately drowsy for the second part of the session. So if we think about it in a teaching perspective, we've got the hyper individual for the first hour, and then we've got the drowsy individual for the second hour. So for the first hour, the teaching that I would do would be very short, sharp, interactive, and as physical as possible for a theory lesson. So, for example, on the topic where we were discussing sports drinks, instead of just literally handing out a couple of handouts of the different types of drinks, saying read this, take it in, and then I'll ask you questions, we would actually make the sports drinks. We'd make the hypertonic drink, we'd make the isotonic drink. We would look at the ingredients, we'd taste it, we'd look at the impacts it would have on an athlete, etc. Straight after the break, for example, I'd put on a video. Didn't necessarily have to relate to the lesson, but just something that was short, sharp, and got a full group of learners who were very active engaged straight away. So this particular individual completed the course, completed the year, and also completed a coaching course as part of that year, and went into a high school and helped out put their skills into practice. So I was a really successful student. The next individual I'd like to talk about is someone who came to us when I was working at a football club, and at the time they were classed as a NEET, so someone who wasn't in education, employment or training. So they came to complete a course which included, the bulk of the course was a sports qualification. Alongside that they do life skills, IT, maths, English, etc. This individual again had ADHD, again took medication on a daily basis, and it was extremely apparent if they hadn't taken it on a particular day. So although the individual had ADHD, quite a number of others in the group, so it was quite an active, lively group really. So to ensure that we did get through the course and the qualifications in a theoretical environment, or put in place a number of rewards and incentives as a group, though not just to this individual. So it was a team kind of effort each week, because the reward was that they would play for the football team and represent the football club. So we decided on rules as a class. So I'd literally say, what do you think would be suitable rules, and I would adhere to those rules as well. We'd all sign a poster just to kind of show that we're all in agreement with these rules, and if the rules weren't abided by, they were penalised by a lack of playing time the following week for that match. So you did actually have the peer pressure in there as well, because if we ended up having a team of 9 players for an 11-a-side game, then that was kind of on them. So the people who weren't allowed to play would be stood on the sideline watching, and if the team was losing, then that loss is almost attributed to the people who stood on the sideline. So in a positive way, we did have the peer pressure there as well. The day after the game too was a 9 o'clock start, and at the game I'd take photographs of them playing football. So straight away, 9 o'clock the following morning, the slideshow of all the pictures that were taken from the game would be shown. If they weren't there for 9 o'clock, then they missed the slideshow, they missed the pictures, they missed seeing who the player of the match was, who the top scorer was, etc. So they were positive rewards, they were realistic rewards, and then they were rewards that they ultimately wanted to work towards. So again, it's kind of doing everything as a class. So instead of me coming in as a complete stranger saying, right, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do this, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do this. Instead it was on them. They decided the rules, so they were more likely to abide by them as well. The last person I want to speak about is someone I worked with when I was living in South Africa. again, well, school it, not again rather, because the other two individuals were post 16, but this individual was primary school age, and we set up a holiday programme over there, and had children come to our programme every day, but we didn't know who we'd get because we literally opened it up to anyone living in the local township. So it wasn't, certainly not an exclusive holiday programme, it was for anyone who wanted to join us on that day. So some days we could have 15 kids, some days we could literally have 50 children. So again, we did need to make sure each day started with a firm set of boundaries, set of rules that again were jointly written, I should say. So the important thing to first state about this child was that he was mischievous, but certainly not malicious. But with not knowing his background straight away, we weren't able to find out the reason for the behaviour initially. So, like I said, we identified rules each day as a team, as a group, and because we had a variety of ages, we had like 3-year-olds straight through to 16-year-olds. To make it nice and easy, our rules were decided, and we'd just do like, we'd draw around the thumbs rather, and just have them put the initial, the first name in that thumb. So that was their contract for the day. So this individual was constantly trying to just wind children up or do anything possible to get your attention. And so straight away would give, instead of kind of letting the behaviour go on and giving him negative attention, as in telling him off, telling him not to do things, telling him what he's doing wrong, we could turn it around straight away and just give him responsibility. So day one, we'd give him a little sports bib to put on, and that was like a coach's bib, and it was his job to assist volunteers. And we soon found out that he really liked taking pictures, because there were quite a few volunteers down there that would take pictures on the holiday programme of the kids having fun. And this person loved seeing pictures on the screen of the camera. So we said it put in place, if he could go 20 minutes without getting in trouble for misbehaving, then we would reward him with a camera for an hour, for example. So we constantly had something in place for him to work towards, whether it would be the coaching bib, whether it would be having the camera, whether it would be being the photographer, whether it be being a little assistant. There was something, he had a purpose, he had something to work towards, he had a goal to work towards. So just to summarise, if you are someone who's working with a child, a young person, teenager, adult, anything, if you know someone with ADHD, one of the easiest things you can do is just to educate yourself on the conditions that the person may have. It's quite often mental health carries such a stigma because it's misunderstood or misrepresented in the media. So educate yourself. If you don't know what you're working with, then how can you help? Try and put yourself in their shoes. If you've got an idea of how their thought process may be, or how they might act, or why they act like that. For me, planning a session or planning a lesson, I'll try and imagine myself in that lesson, and if I can kind of go through that and pick out areas where I'd probably misbehave, or areas that I'd probably just drift off, then I won't deliver that session. I'll literally try and put myself in the shoes of my students or my pupils. Something I touched on with a child that I work with in South Africa, there is a massive difference between maliciousness and maliciousness and misbehaviour. Quite often what the child is displaying will be misbehaviour as opposed to maliciousness. Labelling your pupil, labelling someone as a bad pupil or a bad kid is just going to encourage them to live up to the stereotype. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You keep telling someone they're a naughty kid, they will end up being a naughty kid. Show the individual that you believe in them. That's a massive one. Like I said, with the lad I worked for in South Africa, we gave him we trusted him enough and given the responsibility to look after a camera on well, pretty much every day. So you could actually be the first person that shows the individual that you believe in them. Don't be afraid to experiment. That's the only way inventions have come about, and I think that's quite a good philosophy for life as well. Just don't be afraid to experiment, trial and error. It's, you know, each time you do something it doesn't work, take it off the list. That's one thing you've tried. But in fact, you could try it again in the future, because what works for one person won't necessarily work for another person. So as a teacher or a coach or a youth worker, it's almost like arming yourself and giving yourself a toolkit. So when that individual ends up coming to you, you can just kind of pull one of your tools out, try it. If it works, carry on. If it doesn't, move on to the next one. And definitely avoid seeing your class as a class. Rather see them as a group of individuals, because that's what they are. I say I do quite a few talks and attend support groups, etc. And probably the biggest thing that I've learned is to search for strategies as opposed to solutions. So thank you again for tuning into this video. Please follow me on Twitter. I'm on there as Gemma MAMB. I'm on Facebook as Gemma MAMB. I've got other YouTube videos. I'm on LinkedIn as Gemma MAMB. So if you have any further requests for videos, if you anything you'd like to ask me, please literally find me on any of those social media sites.